Hi there, Let's Talk Sports fans. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk New York Sports, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Keith Engle from TGI Sports Talk. Thanks for joining me today.
Great to be here, Dan. As always, love my Fridays with you. And as I said, not just because I get to see one of my favorite guys, but also the work week is over. And it's been a long week with work and house related stuff, but it's all good stuff. Things are coming together.
Yeah, I'm glad, and not long now until the big move, and we're not just talking about D-Hop, we are talking Mr. Keith Engle heading to his dream home.
Yeah, we're moving closer to Bill Parcells' house in Saratoga because he asked me to get closer to him.
I was going to say another golf buddy, as well as Mr. Draft, who we have talked about.
I think of me and the man I affectionately call excuse my French, the fat bastard. Played golf together, it might get ugly.
I'd say, well, there's a show in it that I will broadcast anything, so might be an opportunity there, but I hope your week's gone well, Keith. How was your show with Carlos this morning?
Good. We jumped into we didn't get into too much of it, any heated arguments today. We had a segment on Lionel Messi joining the MLS Miami team and what that would mean for soccer here in the States, which is something I'm sure that has some interest for you. So we had a fairly decent discussion about that. We talked about the NBA playoffs and Jacob deGrom's injuries, and we didn't get quite as heated as we did when I was in exchange with him on my Sunday stream of consciousness last week about why I believe all these pitchers' injuries happen. But we did have a little bit of a debate there. And what else we talk about? We also talked a little bit about, I forgot what else we talked about. We had talked a little about football because a couple of people had asked about Dalvin Cook getting released by the Vikings and such. But we had a nice, calm discussion today, Carlos and I, for the most part.
Makes a nice change, and yeah, shout out to our mutual friend Alan. When the drum news went down, he was live on air, so had to gather his thoughts with that.
I've been trying all week to get him to admit that they've made a mistake, as I said from the beginning, but he's concentrating only on their record, which congratulations. They're playing great baseball, and I may have been very wrong in my prognostication of their result this year. But that being said, DeGrom signing was still a ridiculous amount of money in years for a guy that's his track record for injuries.
Yeah, I agree. Don't you think that makes the signing worse? So I know this is a bit off topic, but they could have used that if they're true playoff contenders. Should they have put that money somewhere else to make them have even better chances? It kind of makes it worse, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, they could have. Yes, they're in first place and they're playing well, but they could have used that money to strengthen what is a questionable bullpen. Their offense is really, really playing well, but every team can be a little deeper on the bench. But I would have used that money for some relief pitchers because they got a little problem with making guys swing and miss out of that bullpen, which will catch up with you as the season goes on. But now that money's gone, I mean, this isn't Steve Cohen with the Mets or the Steinbrenners with the Yankees. They don't have an unlimited supply of money to spend and be able to go over the luxury tax, right? So it may catch up with them. It may not catch up with them this year. They may very well have a great year, and for Allen's sake, I hope they do. But it will catch up with them somewhere. That money will catch up with them somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. And before we jump right in, I want to encourage everyone to head over to TGI Sports Talk, subscribe to Keith's YouTube channel, follow him or like his page on Facebook for not just the most intelligent college and baseball talks, the most epic rants, and no one does a better hot take than Carlos on a Friday morning.
That's a very good point. And by the way, I'll just throw out there as a shameless plug. I haven't done a vlog in a while just because I've been busy, and I guess I didn't really feel like ranting about anything. But I really had a pretty good ranting vlog about the Live and PGA merger and the hypocrisy of such. So that's going to air probably right here on Let's Talk Sports and some other outlets at right after the show.
Yeah, but I gave my thoughts earlier. Someone asked in the comments when me and Nick was doing a call-in show. So yeah, I gave my thoughts. Not that I'm a big golf guy, but yeah, it's going to be look. I said if I'm the like of Tiger and Rory, I would be
Yeah.
properly upset with the governing body, and other sports may well be because the Saudis have got their hook in golf, in boxing, so they'll
Yeah.
come up with other sports. What now they've backed down is just my opinion.
We shouldn't be in the business of sports washing,
No.
countries' sordid reputations. And obviously this one's sordid. And for these guys to say, and I don't want to get off on a tangent here, you can watch the vlog, but Bryson DeChambeau said, we should move past this. It's a long time ago. We should forgive, and everybody makes mistakes. What? Come on.
It's not that long ago because
20
the
years
guy
ago,
was mixed up.
3,000
Yeah,
people here.
but the guy was all involved with this also bought Newcastle, a soccer team over here,
Yeah.
and Embassy International have like properly fought against it because he's committed human trafficking
Mm-hmm.
and other such offences in the last 10 years. So not to mention they was doing his TV company pirate sporting events. Well, he's pirating the events what he's now a benefactor
Yeah.
of, so that's a bit weird as well.
Not to mention state-sponsored assassination of journalists who speak out against you, and I mean, please, these guys. Phil Mickelson was my favorite golfer of all time until he signed that $200 million deal with Live, and these guys, I don't know how they sleep at night. I really don't. And guys like Rory, and I'm not a big Tiger Woods fan, but he turned down $700 million to join Live, and I respect him for standing by his principles, and the PGA just threw them under the bus.
I agree. If I'm Tiger or Rory, I don't pick up another club on the tour personally. They probably will, but for me, they're well off enough anyway. Why if I don't trust someone, I can't work with them. So
Good
I'll
point.
leave it that. But that is to the point. Before we head into our first topic, I want to thank Sideline Sports, of course, who work with us at LTS with stream channels. Uh, I spoke with JB, the co-founder. The Roku channel will be up in the next week or two, so full
Cool.
steam ahead. So we thank them for their partnership. I know they're very excited for going to be covering the baseball Hall of Fame events and so forth. So they're quite excited to get in the certification for that.
That'll be a lot of fun. Yes, I've been up there a few times for that event, and it's really a lot of fun. Usually, when it's a Yankee being inducted, I've gone, but it's only about an hour. The Hall of Fame's about an hour and 20 minutes from my house, and get up there every couple of years. It's a great spot.
Yeah. So everyone be sure to check it out. I think they're going to cover it pretty much full time on the channel. So
Cool.
yeah, intrigued to see that. Keith, I think we should talk a little bit of D-Hop. It seems like the Patriots are going to host him, I believe, early next week. I could be wrong in that. I would love to see that meeting, whether he signs or not. It's got to be a little bit awkward. I mean, the first person in the door. What he sees should be Bill O'Brien. I would love for that to happen. What's your take on this? As Nick said to me earlier, it would be a game changer for the Patriots. Would you agree with
Uh,
that?
yeah, he would add, I think, a great bit to that wide receiver room. Again, there's no real guy to take charge in that room, and he's a big personality. The meeting is next week, by the way, and I would predict right now that Bill O'Brien will will greet Hopkins with a big hug when they get together. Because listen, this is O'Brien's smart enough to know that they could use a man of his talent. Look, he can't get down the field the way that he used to. I understand that. And I had somebody on one of my shows compare him with Aquan Bolden at this point in his career, and I would say that's not a bad comparison because Aquan Bolden was a great, great player. And when he's on the field, Hopkins is still a great player, and he could add something that this team desperately needs, and that's somebody for him, for Mac Jones to go to in the clutch. So,
Yeah. I agree. And look, I know the average fan would say, how's this going to work? In my experience, particularly in the NFL, money can heal a lot of rifts, if you will. So if they make him an attractive proposition, whereas they may have to sell him on it, I don't think it's like, I know we can't get past this. And one thing you can say is, I think it's important to him to be the number one guy. A lot of these teams interested.
mhm.
If the Bills went for him, for instance, would he be the number one? Probably the only team. What he'd be the bona fide number one. What's interested is the Chiefs, in my opinion. So
Yeah,
if that could be a selling point.
it could be, but the problem is with the Chiefs and the Bills, which are two of his preferred destinations by all reports, they don't have this. They don't have the salary cap maneuverability to do it. Probably. So, I mean, I've heard 14 million is what Hopkins wanted immediately when he was released, and I heard a report today that said he wants 24, which is just crazy. He's not getting that from anybody. There's only a handful of teams that can maneuver to the 14 uh, number if that's where he wants to go. Now the Patriots are one, the Ravens are one, the Eagles are one. Ravens would be an interesting spot for him too, but I do not see the Bills or the Chiefs. And you're right about the Chiefs. I think they could use him desperately, and it's because it's Patrick Mahomes is what makes that wide receiver group any good at all. But I don't think he signs with either Chiefs or the Bills. Just not enough money available.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is interesting. Do you see Bill making this move for this amount of money? I think if he's going to, Hopkins is the sort of player that he would, someone what's considered definitely top, more or less. He might not be quite top three, but maybe best route runner. I think if he go and pay this much for a receiver, I think it would probably be DeAndre. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. And, Bill and DeAndre have a bit of a bromance going anyway. So I'm sure, like I said, I've said this a few times, if Hopkins should sign with the Patriots, there'll probably be a tampering charge because there's all kinds of footage of when the Cardinals played the Patriots this past year of Bill and DeAndre kind of, yucking it up and telling each other how much they loved each other. And, I'm sure Bill was tampering during that conversation. So I would expect the Patriots to get fined for it. But that's fine. No, I do think that this would be something that Bill would pull the trigger on. And because he's that type of player and he knows that he needs this type of, he's a game changer. Again, he can't go down the field like he used to, Dan, but he runs routes, as you said, very precise. His biggest problem the last couple of years hasn't been his attitude. It's been staying on the field.
Yeah, I agree. Though half of that has been the suspension, and I do feel like some people use it as a knock. I firmly believe, I don't believe this story that it was a mistake or anything like that. I think he was coming off an injury. Father Time was catching up with him, and he was maybe made a mistake in the off season, took it to try and aid his recovery, and probably wishes he didn't do it.
I'm sure
At
he does, and I wish more of these guys would just say exactly what you just said there. You know, I really made a mistake. I shouldn't have done it, and I'll do better going forward. Because you really sound stupid when you say, "I don't know what I was taking." I mean, that
Yeah,
just sounds.
I agree. To me, even if that was the case, that's not a defense because even if you don't know, with any crime, you can still get prosecuted for it because negligence isn't a defense in my book. So it kind of makes it worse saying that.
No, you're right. It's not in any book. I keep telling my wife, who is actually a lawyer, or at least for a few more months until she doesn't renew her license, she's retired. I always tell her that ignorance is 9/10 of the law. She politely reminds me that's not accurate.
Yeah. So yeah, I think this is going to be interesting. It certainly would shake up the division because if he goes to the Patriots, literally this division would seriously be four deep. So in some ways, um, leaving my Jets bias aside, I would like it just to see what this division can become, if that makes sense.
It does, and again, I think it's four deep competitive wise already, but the Patriots are, at the bottom of that competitive rung right now. They need this type A personality in that wide receiver room. They don't have it right now. I was talking about that on the Mac and Jack show this morning. There's just nobody there that's like take charge. Juju Smith Schuster is not that guy, and not in my mind. So I
Yeah.
think this would be a great move for the Patriots.
Yeah, I agree. And before we move on, this changes the receiver room because then the starting three would probably be Juju, Harker, Hopkins. Then you've got um the young man they drafted last year from Baylor. I'm
Mm-hmm.
forgetting his name, and Kendrick Bourne. That
Yeah.
sort of changes your perspective of this receiver
It
room entirely.
feels much deeper with just adding that one name to it, doesn't it? So I would like to see that. And you mentioned a name there that they've got to figure out how to get him involved in the game plan again. That's Kendrick Bourne. He got himself in the doghouse early last year, and I mean, they just underutilized him all year long. And part of that was getting in the doghouse with Belichick, and then another part of it was, unfortunately, the guys running the offense shouldn't have been running the offense. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I got told by a Patriots reporter what landed him in the doghouse was turning up for a meeting 20 minutes late. I don't know if that's true, but it would sound a bit weird because I remember us talking his first year. I'm not saying he was a Pro Bowl or anything, but he was just what the offense needed at that point.
no, he wasn't a Pro Bowler, but he was a game. He could change a game. I mean, he's the
Yeah,
type of player who can do a lot of things. He was really good with the jet sweep, which everybody runs that jet sweep, and the Patriots didn't have anybody really to run it last year. And he made some big plays. He was the kind of guy who would always seem to make a big play at a big moment that you weren't expecting it. The numbers will never be eye popping, but you'd watch the games, and if you watch game in and game out, he would at the biggest moments he would come up with a big play. And the year before, I'm talking about, obviously, and that was missing last year.
yeah, I agree. Um, so the next subject I wanted to talk was Delvin Cook. I know obviously Vikings related, but it could affect a few teams. We talk about the Bills and the Dolphins mostly. I know the Jets have been linked to him. I've got to see it to believe that there was rumors that they were ready to sign him, but
Yeah.
I don't see any substance to that personally. I think it'd be a good move, but with everything else they've got to do, I don't really see it. From all reports, I think his preferred location if they would pay would be the Dolphins, but it seems like they don't want to pay him or any running back top dollars while they really left it unchecked in free agency. But I feel for their run heavy offense, he would take it to another level. They ain't really got that guy. They've got guys that are just guys, if you will, but I think it will be with Dolphins, but I think it'd take the Bills to another level. It would mean Josh Allen don't have to run all the time. He could
Mhm.
be Cook could be their preferred run option, and it just take the pressure because everyone talks what happens with Lamar when he takes so many hits, his longevity, but that's the case for Josh Allen as well. So I'd like to see Delvin come in and see what this Bills offense look like with premium back. Is there a team what stands out for you to make a run for him?
Well, Buffalo would be an interesting
Yeah,
destination, being his brothers there as well in the backfield. That'd be an interesting dynamic. I think the big thing here is he. I don't know what he's going to be looking for. He can. He's a free agent. He was due $10 million this year from Minnesota, and one of the reasons they moved on was they couldn't come to a long term agreement, and he's also taken a little bit of a step backwards, I think. Um, in talking with some people that follow the Vikings a little closer than I do. I would think the Dolphins would be a good spot for him. Maybe you said somebody else, the Cardinals. I think would be another one that to keep an eye on. But it's all going to come down to, when you get these guys and they've made a bunch of money. Now he's really never cashed in big time, right? But it's to me it comes down to, but well, if you're making $10 million a year, you're not making peanuts. When you get to this point in your career, do you want to win or do you want to make money? Right. And if he wants to get with a winner, he'll probably go with the Dolphins. If he wants to just cash a check, then he's going to go with somebody who can pay him the most money. Maybe that'll be the Cardinals. I know they've got a bunch of cap space. And that'll be interesting to see what happens. I personally don't think he'll end up with the Dolphins because I don't think they'll match the price as you had mentioned. I think he ends up with somebody like the Cardinals. Hello, CA. Good to have
I,
you.
yeah, always nice to see CA here, and yeah, I think it's going to be interesting what he goes for. And look, some people are knocking him for not taking a cheaper deal. This could work. He's got plenty of gas left in the tank, but this could be one of his last deals. So he's got to maximize that fully. So I'm intrigued by where he goes. I do think there's a bit of negotiation room there where he could get close to the 10 or 11 he wants, maybe 5 million based, and do the rest in incentives every game, if you will, for him to hit. And the bonus of that is he will be motivated to stay on the field as well.
One other landing spot I just happened to think about and I read about yesterday was the Bears. Keep an eye on the Bears and him staying in that NFC North. They could certainly use him, and they're going to be an interesting team to watch this year as far as their development, I think.
Yeah, I agree, and particularly in that division
Mm-hmm.
as well. It's pretty much open, and I do agree with you. Obviously, they let their running back walk, wouldn't pay him, so I don't know how much they're prepared to pay. But look, they've gone all in, speeding up this rebuild, so why not go a little further? It's not very often a player like this comes available this close to the season, so I think you have to do everything you can to go get him, or someone else could.
I'm with you, and I'll just add that because I didn't mention it, I agree with you 100%. I do not think he's in play for the Jets.
Yeah, I don't. I would like him
Mm.
just because it would enable you to slow walk Brees Hall
Yeah,
maybe until the trade deadline, but I just don't see it happening. They've got to pay for him and move Aaron Rodgers money around, but we will see, I guess. Um, to that point, it caught a lot of attention. The Jets essentially given the team a week off earlier this week. I know you're a big one for without you getting hit in pre-season. So am
Mhm.
I. But I don't hate the move just because um we all know Jets fans know more than anyone injuries what can happen. So I'm not against the move just because I got an extra game in pre-season with the Hall of Fame game. What's your feeling? Because this seemed to divide the fan base a little bit.
Yeah, I am a fan of hitting once you get to train the full training camp. Right
Yeah,
at this point in the off season, I don't have a problem with them. Giving them a week to because they worked them pretty hard, and they had a few injuries and whatnot in the OTA. So you know, giving them a week off here is not a big deal. If it means you're going to practice harder and hit more in preseason, I'm certainly all for it. But obviously the uh, the Players Association and the agreement, with the league is you can only hit so much and wear pads so much, and it gets to be more and more where they don't hit at all until they get in games, and that's why you see all these injuries. But I don't think this will have an effect on that.
yeah, I agree. I think a few things played. The fact it would be interesting, but they made this move if Aaron Rodgers didn't suffer that slight ankle injury, so it's not like he's building up chemistry. But I think the biggest thing is, um, Coach Sala did mention a mental health walkthrough, the importance of that. I think they saw what happened to the Bills, where as United contenders, and it seemed like they cracked up under the pressure, and people are anointing the Jets as contenders. So I think, as well as some of the position groups are a bit banged up, the coaching staff thought, let's take the pressure off a little bit. I could be wrong in that, but I think that could be part of it.
Yeah, I agree with you on the stance Salah took. He had an interesting stance too, by the way. You could see an interesting battle coming between the Jets and if you were going to bring this up, I apologize. The Jets and the league, because they're one of four teams that could be forced to be on HBO's Hard Knocks this year, and Salah says we're not doing it because there's a different criteria that lets teams uh, not be part of it. Right, first year coaches. Playoff berth in the last two seasons. There's different things that allow you to kind of opt out of that. And there's four teams that can't say no, and they're one of them. And I'd be shocked that if HBO did not want the Jets on Hard Knocks this year.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Look, there's the Aaron Rodgers storyline. You can't tell me Sauce Gardner wouldn't be a star
Oh,
on
absolutely.
Hard
Yep.
Knocks as well. But I see it from Salah's perspective. He's all about shutting out the noise from outside. You can't shut out that noise if it's literally coming
Yeah.
from within your own building. So, yeah, I bet Woody would be a big component of wanting it. He always wants as much light on the team as possible. So it'll be interesting who gets their way.
Yeah, I was never a big fan of the league forcing teams to do this anyway. I think there's plenty of teams that would want to do it to be able to kind of have a rotation and not be stuck with the same couple teams all the time anyway. And if teams wanted to opt out, they could. I mean, if the Patriots don't, if the Patriots don't get themselves together, they're going to be forced to be in it pretty soon. I think being out of the playoffs, uh, the last two, if they miss the playoff this year and go 2 years in a row, they could potentially be one of the teams that are forced to do it next year. And Bill Belichick doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So one other side point is because we have spoke about Rogers, will he do what's necessary? He is gathering his receivers for a West Coast visit to work out with them, and I like that from him because we've maybe voiced our concerns about at Green Bay towards and maybe not doing what's necessary. So I like this move from him because I think that makes up for them taking a week off.
Yeah,
Um, sort of this is the key thing, gathering up chemistry with your guys.
absolutely. I think it's a good thing. Look at Rodgers so far has been doing everything that he needs to do to integrate himself into the team aspect of this and ingratiate himself to his teammates. I think in New York, right? He's been out in the town. He's been at Nick playoff games, Ranger playoff games. He was at a concert with what's her name, Taylor Swift here a couple of weekends ago, and I think the Barclays Center. So he actually got caught on camera rocking out to, if you can call it rocking out to Taylor Swift. I think he's doing everything he needs to do right now. It's, when the season starts is when it really will show.
I I agree. And one other point is a bit banged up at tight end. Conklin hasn't been practicing, and Osama limped off the field, I believe, yesterday. That's going to be crucial that you have them. Look, it's early days, so I'm not that concerned about it, but Osama has been banged up in his career in the past, so we will see. And we talked about the left tackle position, about Becton saying he's a left tackle end of. Well, we talked that we think Salah will go with Graham Brown, and that was pretty much clear when um, Salah said he feels Graham Brown would be of the mentality he's the left tackle end of, and he was pretty defiant. He sort of made it clear what one he would favour in the two, and I always felt it would be that case. So seems like Beckham will probably have to like being right tackle, or perhaps he'd prefer the bench.
I doubt he'd prefer the bench because he's not going to get paid that way, the way he wants to be. And I'm sure, yes, I agree. Salah sent a pretty direct message there.
Which I do like, to be honest with you, because whereas Becton had an okay rookie season, he's proved nothing so far. You can't spend 2 years injured and expect to walk back in. So if he wants to get paid all out at right tackle, then we can talk, is my opinion. So
I
um
agree.
we will see. Um so Keith, how you feeling about baseball as a Yankees fan?
I'm a little concerned. The injury bug, and you can't blame injuries. Everybody gets injuries, and it's got to be next man up. But right now, I mean, with Nestor banged up, and he hasn't pitched well anyway. He's on the IL with a rotator cuff strain. Never something you want to hear. Obviously, Judge with the toe problem. I've been around this team enough and listened to some of the way they double speak, and I would not be shocked if both of these guys are going to be out a lot longer than what we think. Um, if Judge is in fact out for a while, they've got to figure out something. Somebody's got to step up. Stanton's got to step up and not only stay healthy but cut down on the strikeouts and I'm sorry. Cabrera's back from the minors after a couple of days because he wasn't playing well. He's got to get back to where he was last year, and Josh Donaldson's got to step it up, and the whole team. It's the next man up thing, and somebody's got to pick up the slack because Aaron Judge was having as good a year, almost exactly the same year that he was having last year. And if he's out for any period of time, it's going to hurt this team a lot. And it also hurts in the leadership. And he's also been a mentor to Volpe as well. So I'm a little concerned because I don't think this is going to be a 1 week thing on the DL. I think this is going to be a little more longer.
Yeah, I agree. And look, he's already had 2 injuries this year. Last year, he was very lucky. And I know, and he's going to have the pressure ramped up on him because the argument will be, well, the year he's going to get paid, he was okay. But look, when someone's got a bit of injury history, if you've one good year, you can almost count on it being a not so good year for health. And we talked a week or so ago about look, although the people aren't very high on the team, that they're not that far away. But that being said, it's starting to get to the stage where the distance is getting bigger, so they kind of need to, at some point, pull a bit of a run together just to calm their nerves as much as the fans' nerves.
I agree, and people keep talking. Well, they'll get a wild card. Well, there's going to be probably six teams in play for 3 wild card spots, and there's no guarantee the Yankees are going to get one of them because the Orioles, the Blue Jays, who are resurgent and played really well the last 10 days or so, they're back in it. You got the Rangers or the Astros, whoever doesn't win the West, plus the Angels are hanging in there. I expect the Mariners to bounce back. All these teams are going to be in play for those 3 wild card spots. So Yankee fans, don't just fool yourselves into thinking it doesn't matter that we're 8 games behind, 8.5 games behind today, because you're not guaranteed anything like you might have been in years past.
I agree, and even if they did limp into the playoffs, what are you going to be when you get in there, to be honest with you? So just getting in, this is the New York Yankees. It isn't a victory. Getting in the playoffs, you're meant to win the World Series. That's who you are. So, I don't know what's worse, limping in the playoffs or not getting in.
Yes, very good. CA brings up the fact that Jordan Alvarez got hurt the other day too, and he's only out supposedly 10 days. We'll see. These teams don't always give us the right amount of time, and they cannot afford to lose him because their offense has struggled. They played a lot better the last month, but their offense has struggled. And Alvarez is one of the few guys hitting for the Astros, but their pitching is still really good. And listen, the Yankees, to me, and I think we talked about this several times, Dan, that come the playoffs, healthy or not, this team is still basically the same team that can't beat elite pitching in the playoffs. So you got that to worry about too.
Yeah, I agree. So the Mets, how you feeling about the Mets? Pretty much the same.
Even worse. I mean, this team, they got the psychological issue of not being able to beat the Braves ever anymore, it seems. They've lost 6 in a row. They're finding all kinds of ways to do it. Pete Alonso, speaking of injuries, may be going to the DL depending on how the x-rays come out on his wrist. This team, they need a spark, and I don't know where it's going to come from because they don't have, and by the way, one of the bright spots is Alvarez, and Buck needs to play him behind the plate more than he has been with Navarro's back. I don't care. Alvarez has his defensive shortcomings, but he's the one guy. He's been hitting the bejesus out of the ball. He had 2 home runs again the other day. He got, I think, 9 home runs in his last 25 games. They need a spark, and they need that type of spark. And there's nobody left to bring up from the minors. You've already brought up Batty. You've already brought up Venezia. You're not firing your manager. And it's going to be very hard to make an impactful trade this year because there's so many teams that are going to be, thinking they got a legitimate shot at a wild card that they're not going to trade their big trade chips. Ohtani might have been available at the trade deadline this year if the Angels thought they couldn't sign him. But if they're going to stay in the race, they're not going to move him. There is no Soto, I don't think, that's going to be out there to really spark a team. If I'm the Mets, I start relying on the kids like Alvarez's, Matty, and Venezia, and start sitting the Vogelbergs and the rest of these guys that just aren't giving them the energy. Find a replacement for Starling Marte and get Lindor out of the 3-hole, Buck. I love Buck. Buck is my favorite manager, but he is stubborn and he can't keep rolling Lindor out there in the 3-hole every night. I mean, he's still contributing on defense, but you got to move him down the lineup.
Yeah. And do you think there's a certain amount of their struggles? Do you think it's roster construction, or like last year when they were, well, I wouldn't go on fire, but on a good run? The Buck haters said wait until next year. Do you think there's some coaches what maybe the message gets older quicker? Do you think that's any part of it, or do you just think it's poor mentality and not necessarily an issue with Buck?
No, I don't think it has happened with Buck in the past, obviously, that people have tuned out, but he's mellowed a little bit. I think he's a different manager. He hasn't changed his philosophy that much, but I think his approach to players and his message to players is a little different than it's been in the past. And I don't think he'll wear out his welcome. He didn't wear out his welcome in Baltimore that quickly, right? Like he did in Texas and like he did in Arizona. The Yankees was a totally different story, obviously. So I don't think it's that. I think it's just it's a combination of you've got some older guys, you've got injuries that are creeping up, you've got guys who just are not performing up to snuff, and maybe Buck needs to start holding some of these stars like Lindor accountable. And just because you're making the big bucks and you've got the history behind you, you don't need to be batting third. I'll put you down in the 7-hole, and get somebody else in there, because you can't roll out that same lineup every single night when you're getting the results that you're getting right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. So before we wrap things up, Chris Paul's being well, not officially, but let he's going to be waived. Do you see that there's a possibility with the Knicks with Leon Rose's history? Could you see that happening? I know they've got Bronson, but you could maybe see them add him as a second point guard and someone very much to help during the playoffs, or do you think probably not?
For some reason, I missed the name. Give me the name one more time.
Do you see Chris Paul's been is going to get raved by the Suns? Could you see with Leon Rose absolutely loves Chris Paul, so could you see them? I
Yeah,
probably can't, but it wouldn't. I wouldn't rule it out if that makes sense.
I guess I wouldn't rule it out, Dan, but they're so heavy back in the backcourt now. And they've got to they've got to keep quickly, and they're going to have to keep him happy. And I just don't see a lot of minutes for a guy like Paul. You saw what Derrick Rose sat on the bench the whole second half of the season, and I see similar arcs with Rose and Paul. Paul's best days are well behind. If we're talking about the Chris Paul from 3 or 4 years ago, then I would love to have him on my team, but I just don't think that's the best way for the Knicks to go here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And shout out to the Coaches Box. So they're one of our channels here at Let's Talk Sports. As the name would suggest, a channel of coaches talking sports, but also from the coaching perspective. The main guys, Chris Miller, uh, jumped on some of our shows recently, so shout out to them. Check out their stuff if you want a podcast, maybe from a different perspective for coaches' viewpoint.
Well, thanks for the kind words, guys. And I did catch a little of their show the other night. Good stuff. Good stuff.
So Keith, before we wrap up, I assume you've got your Sunday stream of consciousness. Anything special planned?
Pretty much it'll be a standard fare for Sunday. We'll have Jim Beringer on to talk some NHL. The Stanley Cup is a series again with the Panthers finally winning a game here last night, and the Rangers coaching search lingering on. So we'll have lots to talk to Jim about. We'll get into all the Major League Baseball a little bit more in depth, and soon we'll be diving more into football too. And we'll look at the College World Series, because I haven't been doing my college sports huddle show for the month of June. We'll get back into that in July, just so people know. But we'll talk college baseball World Series as we've reached the super regionals, and we wish Wake Forest and our good friend Larry Sorensen, who's one of their announcers, all the best of luck. They're the number one seed in that tournament.
Yeah, very interesting. Can't wait for that yet. Jim's recently relaunched Let's Talk Pucks. His friend John's joined him, so everyone be sure to check that out. Most exciting time of the year for hockey fans, and Jim knows his stuff.
Jim brings it all the time. Let me tell you, he's the best.
Yeah, definitely is. I guess all what remains is for me to thank you, Keith, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Dan, and look forward to this again next week. It's always fun to catch up with you.
Yeah, same here, Keith. Everyone, don't forget to join Keith on Sunday. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. Everyone what commented, and until next week, let's talk sport, fans. Thanks for watching, including welcome Rick.
Thanks for joining us, Rick. Bye-bye.